they played in the early history of the game of baseball. They were as good or maybe even better than the great Gordon Maltzberger or George Castor, who played many years in the majors than they did. James Lefty Faulkner was another one who played in the majors that played with the Central's Cubs team. He was a pitcher. And they were all from Colton. The Cubs contributed so much to the sport they loved. The people who saw them play were very lucky. They will never make the Baseball Hall of Fame. I'm talking about the Major League Hall of Fame. But only you can put them in the Colton Hall of Fame. Let us not forget. These young men did not play for money, but for the love of the game. Thank you. That was my presentation, and they were selected. They were selected unanimously, and I was proud of that because there was only 2 picked this year, and they were one of the 2. So I'm 2 for 2 right now. So, and my next project will probably be getting the Colton Mercuries next year, and hopefully they'll get in. I'm sure they will. I've done my homework, and if they don't, the thing about the Hall of Fame, if you don't make it this year, you can try again. But my mom, I guess we were lucky that they chose 4, but this year was just 2. So it kind of narrows that down to where it's a lot harder to make it.
Yeah. Let me go back to some of the players that you mentioned in your report, and also that you found out in your research.
Right.
The Castorena brothers, you had 3 Castorena brothers?
4.
4 Castorena? There was Porfirio?
Porfirio, Arturo, Pio, and Sal.
Okay. Now, where did they work? Do you know where they worked?
I've just found out because they played on some teams for the cement plant, so I'm thinking that's probably where the Sal and Arturo played. Pio, I never found out where he worked. Or Porfirio. I would have to ask Tommy Casurena.
Okay.
But most likely could have been the PFE or the cement plant.
Well, I guess possibly the cement plant because Sal lived close to the cement plant, and I think Porfirio would bicycle himself to the cement plant. He was our neighbor. But when did they have time to play ball? Or was it just a big determination that they were going to play?
Well, these guys played not just for a couple of teams. They were playing all over. They played, like I say, with the cement plant. They played for, a couple of them played for Pio and Sal played for a team from Santa Fe. I have a couple of pictures of them on that. And so did Tio Duarte. Tio Duarte played on one of those teams from Santa Fe. So like I say, as I told you before, that these guys didn't just play once a week or twice. They played as many days as they could after work or whatever, or between seasons from the Cubs. They would go to Mexicali, played against Mexicali, and I've got a picture here where I think it's Sal who had a Mexicali uniform. So they also played with the teams over there. They also played Japanese and Chinese teams back in the 20s and 30s. Because a lot of your Japanese and Chinese would come over here and play against teams over here.
That's the other question I'm going to ask you. Who do they play? You mentioned teams from all over the place, and by all over the place you mean Riverside, San Bernardino?
Yeah, they had a lot of... there was teams, and even Cervantes, I think, had a team. Of course, that might be with... But they did have a lot of teams, Anglo teams that they played against, and sometimes they would have an Anglo play with them, but there was teams from L.A. and probably San Bernardino that they played against, because I imagine there was probably a lot of teams during that time.
Well, I would imagine that were they ever able to play in North Colton against the Anglo teams? Or did they just play against the Mexican teams from the different communities?
I think it was mainly the Mexican, because they weren't allowed to play in some of these Anglo teams because they were Mexicans.
They couldn't play in North Colton.
Yeah, and if the Anglos didn't want to play with them, they probably didn't want to play against them. So but that happened in the Negro leagues too. So
the other question that I had, which out of curiosity, is did they all go to Colton High School?
The only ones I
Because
found,
I know that
yeah.
Malzberger was a big star at
Oh,
the
yeah.
Colton High School. But what about our Mexican American players? Did they attend Colton High School?
the only ones I know for sure were Pio, Casoena, and Sal. And I have pictures of them sitting next to, who was the principal for Colton?
McIntosh?
McIntosh. McIntosh was their coach, and you got to see him in the pictures. He's a young McIntosh. Unbelievable.
Mm-hmm.
Because Sal would have graduated in 29, and I think Pio graduated a year or two before that. But I have pictures of them. As far as the older Casarenas, they might have only gone to 6th grade or 8th grade, like a lot of people did. They, with big families, they had to work and help with the family, and that happened a lot during that time. Tilo Duarte, I would have to find out, where he worked and all that.
So mainly you would assume that it was the Portland cement plant
Yeah.
or the PFE.
Well, they could have just been construction workers, because they were a lot of skilled laborers.
I would imagine that in reading some articles of some of the players from Orange County, many of them were orange pickers.
Sure.
And we had a
Well,
lot
a lot of them were
sippers
here too. Yeah.
We had a lot of
I remember as a
sippers here.
kid, the truck would honk, and they'd early in the morning pick them up and take them, and then come back later in the day. Yeah, and that's their main job.
Uh-huh.
I remember hearing where if you were a, how do you call it, cenicero, or one they could pick 100 boxes a day.
Cienero.
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 Cieneros.
Somebody could pick 100
Oh,
bucks a day.
and a lot of them were the old guys,
Uh-huh.
the ones that had done it for years and years.
And I would imagine some of these players were some of those cieneros that we're talking about.
Exactly, exactly. Especially if they didn't work at the cement plant or other places.
Hmm.
But yeah,
And Mel, did they have any sponsors? Because
the only sponsors were the Calderas, because he was the entrepreneur. He's the backer. He had the money. Now with the cement, when some of them played with the cement plant, well, there was a cement plant, or Santa Fe. There was Santa Fe were their sponsors.
The Santa Fe Railroad?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Now the cement plant, did they have a ball field? Did
I
they have
heard
a
they-
ball field at the bottom of the
I heard they did on Rancho.
right?
Yeah, I never saw it, or I just heard about it,
Mm-hmm.
but they had their own ball field. So
Is that a bee?
Something's buzzing.
yeah, it's a bee
Where is it?
right there in the window.
That's a yellow jacket,
Yeah.
a ball player.
Yeah, yeah, he's our
Wants to get into
mascot.
the act. Wants to get into
Yeah,
the act.
yeah.
Yeah. But anyway, what about I would imagine after work and playing and then just having what they do at home. They
How they found time.
did they have large families?
Most of them did. In fact, I have a picture in one of the Colton books that Bobby Vasquez that made here several
Yes.
years ago,
Yes.
of an old band, and 3 or 4 of the Casuena brothers played in the band too.
They were also
Músicos, yeah.
músicos.
Yeah, yeah.
They played in the band.
Exactly, yeah. So, what can I say? They kept busy.
They did
How did
everything.
Exactly. Exactly. You see, this is things people didn't know about them. So hopefully with what I'm doing here is they'll know
Mhm.
and not forget. Because, how can you go through life? I know their families will never forget, but we shouldn't forget. We should remember what they did. That's my motivation. Not only for my mom's team or this team, because the Mercuries that I'm going to be working on next, all those people are 90 or over. These were the sons of the original team.
Tell me about your next project.
Well, my next project's going to probably be, and I was going to do it this year, but I said, no, I'll wait till next year to nominate the Colton Mercury men's team. And they started in 39 and played for 3-4 years before the war started. And then they continued again back in 46, I think it was.
After the war.
After the war. And they continued playing. Of course, a lot of them got too old, but that continued to probably into the 70s or maybe early 80s. The Mercury team, who had a lot of ball players. But what I'm going for this project is the originals, the ones that were
The original were the 40s through
30s through the 40s and maybe up to the 50s, but mainly the 40s. Because a lot of them continue to play. There was Ray Martinez, Ralph Martinez. There was a whole oodles of them. There was a bunch of them. And most people now that are alive today remember them because there were some are still, like I remember them, are still young enough to remember, but a lot of them don't even know about the Cubs or the Centrals.
I didn't know anything about them, but my
Yeah.
heroes were the Mercuries.
Yeah.
And
they're all
Ralph Martinez was a catcher.
Sure.
And
And his brother was Simon was a pitcher.
pitcher. And first baseman was Art Miguel.
Yeah.
Second baseman was I don't know who
Yeah,
was second baseman.
Yeah.
Mejia.
Oh yeah, they got the
Yeah.
the two pitchers from Highgrove. I forget their names right offhand, but I have their names. I
The
have
third baseman was Theo Duarte.
Yeah, they had a good team.
They had a great team.
And I
Yeah.
found out too that there was a junior Mercury team. I never knew that in the early years. And then after they broke up, some of them became the big team. But I got a lot of information. I got a lot of names and positions. So when I make my presentation next year, it'll all be there. So,
what role did the teams have in the community? Were they celebrated? Were they role models? Were they entertainment for the community? Did they fundraise in the community?
Yeah. A lot of that I don't know, but I'm thinking, because you can go to any city in Orange County or Cucamonga, every Sunday after church, there was a game to be played. Played for nothing, maybe a keg of beer or whatever, but even the Mercuries did that, But they played for fun, and people looked up to them because that was their entertainment. There was no TV. If you wanted something on radio, you couldn't even see a major league ball player. You could hear about it in radio, but that was it. That was they loved baseball then. The people loved, they sometimes even at night, if it was getting dark, they'd park their cars and turn on their lights and, that's what I heard. But I think it was just a big thing, and that's what the community loved about them. Even though maybe a lot of them weren't related to the players. But where are you going to go? There was no Little League. There was no Pony League. There was no Colt League. There was no Girls League or soccer or anything like that.
And then we were regulated to stay in South Colton.
Yeah. That's sad. I have my own feelings about my country, and it's my country, and I love my country. But we did a lot of, and when I say we, I'm saying overall, we did a lot of bad. From the British coming to us taking over the American Indian, putting the Japanese Americans into concentration camps. They didn't do it to the German Americans or the Italian Americans who were fighting. I've heard stories because they used to have a lot of Italian POWs here, and they take them to town and feed them in restaurants. But you do that to a black guy that just came from the service and lost an arm or lost a leg. They weren't allowed.
Mm-hmm.
That is a tragedy, And the blacks, what can you say about them? They were slaves. And to this day, they still have a lot of problems. And I know they have a lot of, even to this day, a lot of you're hurt. They can't use it as an excuse, but it is true. What was done to them was done to them. But a lot of Mexicanos, there was a lot done to them in Texas and in here. And look at all the great men. John F. Kennedy, shot and killed. Robert Kennedy, shot and killed. Martin Luther King, shot and killed. And they were all peaceful men. Chavez, he wasn't killed, but he went through that fasting, almost died, because he believed what he was doing. He believed, and I look at them now, I think they're better off now than they were before.
Mm-hmm.
But it didn't have to be that way, but because of, I get emotional when I
Well,
think
you
about
certainly
it.
do. But, that's the way it was. And that's,
Yeah. And we-
through de facto segregation, and
Yeah.
that's the way it was. And
Yeah.
nobody was able to, they complained about it, but you couldn't do anything about it
No.
because that's the way it was.
You could.
And you have to accept that for what it was.
Yeah.
Back then.
Right.
And I think our baseball players, growing up and being acculturated into the system, were able to look at what was available
Yeah.
and get together, form teams.
Yeah. If I can't play on that team, we'll make our own team. That's what
Right.
they
And
did.
they would kind of answer to the call of being self-sufficient,
Exactly.
where they would have to do what they had to do
And
with
still
the
work.
resources
And still work every day.
that were available to them,
Right.
and still be able to participate in society, either as an athlete or as a worker in one of the occupations that was available
Right.
to them.
Right.
Yeah, but let me get back, Mel. In baseball, you have to have equipment, you have to have uniforms,
Right.
you have to have a field, and how were they able to get those resources to be able to participate in their sport?
Well, that's where their sponsors come in. That's where, and I'm sure Juan Caldera had some money because he's the one that would probably buy everything, built the field and buy the balls and the bats and even if he had to buy the shoes, but he was their main source.
Uh-huh.
And I'm sure during those games they would have sell beer or sell whatever, so he may get some of that money back.
Hmm. So their concession stands,
Yeah.
they probably have made some money to,
I
be
think
able to
so.
support their.
Yeah. But he
their
was
activities.
making money in the. He also had a bull ring. He had a cantina there, plus the plant. So money was coming in for him.
Yeah.
So he had the.
It's
the
also
money to
my
pay for that.
understanding that he, in downtown, on 7th Street, he had a carniceria.
Mm.
He had a store there, and was able to maintain that store, and then from there was able to do the project on South 5th Street.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. He had a lot of land there. Evidently, he must have owned from 5th Street to Rancho, all that area right there, because that's where.
What about the other stores on 7th Street, Mel? Like the bakery, the.
Martinez Bakery.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, and that was, I know one of the sons of the owners, they called him Baker Martinez.
Right,
And he had a brother named Nick Martinez who
Right.
played in a band.
the band.
But Baker was a great ball player. He went to Colton High back in the 30s, and he's still alive. He's 95, 96 years old. He lives up in Sacramento, because I know his nephew, Nick Martinez Jr., and he's the one that fills me in sometimes that he doesn't come over here anymore. He can't drive. But those are the only... I remember there was a lot of stores there, Tucker's and Martinez, and I lived off near 5th Street where they had Bocanegra's Market. They had Cervantes Market on La Cadena.
What about
Navarro's.
the market? Yeah, Navarro, and then west of Navarro on O Street.